everyone, so we're just going to be going over the depression and addiction topic, and I'm just going to run through the main core concepts. So the first one is the genetic theory of depression, and the main thing you need to know about this is that the 5-HTT gene causes depression. So you need to know that the 5-HTT gene is the one that is going to be linked to having depression or showing depression. And this means that we inherit this from our parents. And there are studies to support this in twins who found that if one identical twin has depression, then there's a 46% chance the other one does, which suggests that there is some genetic element to it because identical twins share 100% of their genes. So what you need to take away from this is that the 5-HTT gene causes depression and that there is therefore a genetic link to depression. Therefore, if there is a biological explanation for depression, we can also treat depression biologically. So we can treat it through drugs. So the most common type of drug therapy for depression is SSRIs, or selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. Selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors work as they are described. They block the reuptake of serotonin, so they stop the serotonin from being taken back up by the original neuron which has released it. And that means there is more serotonin moving around your brain and therefore increasing our mood. Other than the genetic explanation, we have also got the cognitive theory of depression, and this suggests two different theories. We've got Beck's negative triad, which says that people have a negative view of the world, the self, and the future. And we have Ellis's ABC model, which says we have an activating event, which is something stressful in our lives, like our favourite pet dying, and then that leads to a negative belief of, oh no, everything's in the world's going to end, like this is it, like I can't believe that like this has happened to me, and that leads to the consequence of depression. And you need to remember that the consequence is always that you get depression. So those are the two theories, Beck and Ellis. Beck's negative triad, the world, the self and the future, and Ellis's ABC model, activating event, belief, a negative belief, and then the consequence of depression. Remember that the cognitive approach is all to do with theories surrounding like our thought processes. So cognitive is thoughts, and our negative thoughts lead to depression. And therefore, to treat this, we can use cognitive behavioural therapy, and this works by the therapist challenging our irrational thoughts. So they ask the person to prove that their irrational thoughts are true, and then they're not able to. For example, the person might have an irrational thought that everyone in the world hates them, and they say, okay, prove to me, for example, that like everyone hates you. Like I'd like you to go up to a few people who are your few close friends or somebody else and just ask them, do you hate me? And you'll find that the answer is no, so you challenge them. And the therapist will also set homework for them to practice writing down their irrational thoughts and challenging them themselves, so they eventually become capable of doing this by themselves. So that's cognitive behavioural therapy, otherwise known as CBT. Challenging our irrational thoughts. Our thoughts are the cognitive bit, and the challenging of them actually doing it, the action, is the behavioural part of it. So those are the main theories associated with depression. So that's our AO1. Our main study for depression is Caspi et al. And Caspi's study was all about seeing whether there is an interaction between the 5-HTT gene and stressful life events. And what they did was they found that those who had two short alleles of the 5-HTT gene, just imagine it's like a variation of the 5-HTT gene, were more likely to have severe symptoms of depression, but only if they'd also had lots of stressful life events. So what this suggests is that the gene is can be dormant, but it's triggered and activated if we have a series of stressful life events. And the more stressful life events we have, the more likely our gene is to be triggered, and the worse that will be. And this is known as the diathesis stress model, which suggests that there's a combination of genetics and also of environmental factors, and the two play a role together. The stress part is obviously like the stressful life events that happen, and the diathesis is the genetic part, and in this case the genetic part is the 5-HTT gene. So what you need to take away from this is Caspi found that the two short alleles plus the stressful life events is led to the most severe types of depression. Okay. So if you want to have a quick go at this will show you test your knowledge on whether you are confident on these key studies and theories. So you can just check your answers afterwards. If we're going to talk about then instead the addiction part of the topic, we're going to talk about the genetic theory of addiction. And the main thing you need to know here is that the DRD2 gene is responsible for addictive behaviours. And again, there's research to support that you can inherit this gene from family members, and that will lead us to being more likely to have an addictive personality. And this is because the DRD2 gene, or the dopamine in it, reduces the amount of pleasure that you get from everyday activities, so you have to do something like more extreme in order to like feel that same buzz that everyone else gets from just everyday activities. And therefore, just like we have with depression, we've also got the drug therapy for it. So we found that methadone is a really good treatment for especially like physical addictions such as like smoking or drugs, anything like that. Methadone can be used to reduce reduce the symptoms and need, and like the physical need in order to take these, like the feeling of needing to take this drug or whatever you're addicted to. And detoxification is important in this because this is the process by which we slowly remove the amount of that drug that you're taking, so that you can like slowly come off of it. But it leads to many unpleasant side effects like withdrawal symptoms like shaking and sweating, because you're not used to having like that little amount in your body, and it takes a while for your body to adjust. For behavioural addictions, say like an addiction to your phone or to the TV, SSRIs have also been found helpful to use, just like when we're treating depression. So take away from the genetic theory, we've got the genetic theory is associated with a DRD2 gene, so it's inherited, and therefore we can treat it either using methadone if it's a physical addiction, or SSRIs if it's a behavioural addiction. Social learning theory is a general theory. It says that we learn through observing other people, and in terms of an addiction, we can learn addictions by observing other people who are addicted and then wanting to copy them because they are our role models. So if we see somebody else smoking who is like maybe an older sibling or someone at school that you really admire, then you're more likely to take up smoking because you want to be like them and you want to copy them. This is known as imitation, so you want to imitate or copy them. And we tend to identify people who are similar to us in some way, for example, a similar age or gender to us, and that makes us more likely to copy their behaviours. So if we want to treat it, we can also treat it through CBT again, so cognitive behavioural therapy. This is slightly different than the depression one. In addiction, there are two stages: functional analysis and skills training. The first thing that they do is functional analysis, and this is all about working out what or who triggers their addiction. So they ask them, like, is it the people that you're around? Is it the certain places that you go to? Or is it certain things that cause your addiction? And they make a list and they try and work out what causes your addiction. And then they teach you skills to help you to say no to the addiction and how to cope with the cravings. So when we're talking about saying no to an addiction, this is assertiveness training. So thinking about saying like, no, I don't want to do this. I don't think this is a good idea. I'm going to leave. And then that allows them to have the confidence to say, no, I'm not going to do this anymore. So they teach them the skills to do that, and they also teach them how to cope with their cravings so that they can deal with this over like a longer period of time. So the more they're off of their or away from their addiction, they can cope with that like feeling of needing to take their addiction. So we've got social learning theory, which is all about learning our addictions through observing others, in particular our role models, and CBT, which is all about working out who, what and why our addictions are caused, and then helping us to gain the skills to say, no, I don't want to do that, and I can cope even though I'm feeling like I need to do that behaviour or I need that substance. And finally, we've got Young Study. So Young Study looked at CBT and how helpful it was, and they found that it increased people's motivation, it helped relationship functioning, and it helped them to control their offline activities. And in particular, they found that CBT was helpful even 6 months later, so it was useful to people. What's good to note about this study is this was looking specifically at internet addictions, and they did all of their CBT online. So it's really important to note that this doesn't suggest that CBT would be good for treating other addictions, specifically like physical addictions such as smoking or drugs. So just be wary when you try and apply this, that it's talking about internet addiction in particular. And again, if you want to have a go at trying to match these up, being confident in that, then have a go at this and then check the answers in a second. Fabulous, well done.